So let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you for the opportunity to get to play these sports, Lord. I pray, Father, that you would just allow each and every young child and participant, Lord, to have an enjoyable season this year, Lord. Allow us to learn more about soccer, more about team sports, and how to play with others. I thank you and praise you for the opportunity to get to have these sports in these trying times, Lord. And I just ask that you just allow both the parents and children to have an enjoyable experience this year. We thank you and praise you and ask all these things in your name. Amen. All right. Well, I did want to say first off, for those of you who have participated in sports with us before, thank you for coming back and playing with us again. And for those of you who this might be the first time playing with the YMCA, I would like to say welcome, and we're excited that you have decided to play with us this year. This has honestly been a record turnout. We have got right at 300 children in soccer and t-ball, or soccer alone, 400 children right in soccer and t-ball. And so that has broken the record that we have had here at the YMCA. So we're really excited about the turnout and what we've had participate this year. And so I wanted to say thank you for that. And also we're excited to see what all that entails and what all that brings to the table. But first and foremost, I wanted to kind of get right into the locations of all of our games and practices. It will be still at our Hunt Park, the YMCA fields. The address for that is 1823 Westover Road. And I'm going to type that into the chat real quick. That way you can reference that. That is the address. Once again, 1823 Westover Road. That is where we will play all of our games, all of our practices. Everything will be located at those fields. And so I'm going to share the screen real quick and show you a picture of kind of the layout of our fields. So I believe everybody should be able to see on the screen here. So you have our YMCA pools at the bottom. That way you kind of have reference. You have our parking lots, the airnasium. You have the two entrances next to the airnasium and the pool. That is where you can come in to park your cars and where you will enter through there. As far as the fields, most of our soccer fields are going to be on the right. We have field 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So for those, right now, we've had, as I said, the record turnout. And so we have 6 teams in our 3 to 4 year olds, 8 teams in our 5 to 6 year olds, 6 teams in our 7 to 8 and 9 to 10 year olds, 4 teams in our 11 to 12 year olds. And it's looking like we will have to combine the 13 to 14 and 15 to 17 year olds for about 2 teams. So that's what we're looking at there. As far as the practice fields, more than likely the 3 to 4 year olds are going to be on 1, 2, and 5. Our 5 to 6 year olds will also be on 1, 2, 5, and probably 6. That one is still up in the air. All depends on how the scheduling works out. Our 7 to 8 year olds will also be on 1, 2, 5. Each of those are at different times. And I will get to that part in just a minute. Our 9 to 10 year olds will be on 3, 4, and 6. Our 11 to 12 year olds will be on 3 to 4. And our 13 to 17 year olds will probably be the only ones playing on field 11. And that is in between the t-ball fields on the left-hand side over there. So that is going to be the locations of all of our games, all of our practices. And once again, that is 1823 Westover Road is the address. It is over, if you're familiar where the YMCA pool is, it will be right there. And so that's where all of our soccer games and practices will be played. And so I did want to mention a couple notable things. First off, I know in the information sheet, I put on the times on there as far as everything. 2 things that have changed since the beginning, and I wanted to make all the parents aware of that, are our 9 to 10 and 7 to 8 year olds. I know the ones that might have registered in early registration and a little bit in the regular registration at the beginning of that might have gotten an information sheet that said they practice at 6 o'clock. But since they are playing on the same fields as our 3 to 4 and 5 to 6 year olds, they will be playing at 7 o'clock. So that is for the 7 to 8 year olds. They will be playing at 7 o'clock after our 5 to 6 year olds play. And then also for the 9 to 10 and 11 to 12 year olds, originally the 9 to 10 year olds were at 6 o'clock and the 11 to 12 year olds were at 7 o'clock. However, due to some scheduling conflicts and the teams and not being able to get enough fields for the 9 to 10 year olds in the 6 o'clock hour, we have had to switch those. where now the 9 to 10-year-olds will be at 7 o'clock and the 11 to 12-year-olds will be at 6 o'clock. So those are two things that I did want to mention as far as change from the information sheet. But I will go through each of the practice times and games. That way you will be aware of those even before we have the schedule. So starting off with our 3 to 4-year-olds, we are doing something new with our 3 to 4-year-olds this year. I know in the past, the practice times have been at 6 o'clock, but due to a lot of parents saying that they would like their children to get to bed a little bit earlier, we have moved it up to 5:15 this year. So all our 3 to 4-year-old soccer will start at 5:15. It'll last about 45 minutes, getting over at about 6 o'clock. And that is our 3 to 4-year-old practice times. And as I mentioned, they'll be on those fields I had referenced earlier. And as far as for the 5 to 6-year-olds, they are starting right after the 3 to 4-year-olds at 6 o'clock now. Those will also be on fields 1, 2, and 5. They'll take about 45 minutes to an hour, and they will be getting over. And then right after that, we will have our 7 to 8-year-olds starting at 7 o'clock on those same fields. And so that way you kind of are aware of those. The 3 to 4-year-olds are at 5:15, the 5 to 6-year-olds are at 6, and then the 7 to 8-year-olds will be at 7. Then for our 9 to 10-year-olds, they will be playing and practicing at 7 o'clock on fields 3, 4, and 6. And then our 11 to 12-year-olds, which we have 4 teams in that league, will be playing at 6 o'clock now on fields 3 and 4. And then lastly, our 13 to 17-year-olds will be playing at 7 o'clock on field 11 in between our T-ball fields. So that is our information as far as practice and game times, as well as locations. And so that way everybody's aware of those. Does anybody have any questions on that so far as the practice times / game times?
What field do you said 4 and 5 again? I mean 3 and 4.
The 3 to 4-year-olds. Hold on, I'll share my screen real quick again. Let me pull it back up. That way I can show you this. All right. So the 3 to 4-year-olds will be practicing on field 1, 2, or 5, and it will mention on your schedule which one or which field that they will play on, but it will be 1, 2, or 5 for that, as far as for the practice times and game times or locations.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am. And I will say we try and keep all of our soccer as close to each other as we can. That way I know there's some parents that have their children playing in a couple different leagues. So that we try and keep it as close as we can. That way they don't have to walk long distances. And that's kind of why we do that like that. And that's why we switched up some of the scheduling to try and keep everything in a more compact area to keep it where we could allow everybody to flow through smoothly through those things. Was there any other questions on the practice locations or practice times or anything along those lines? All right. So moving right along, for some of our leagues, or let me back up. So as far as the first practice, our first practice will be March 22nd. That should be next Tuesday. And we'll have 2 weeks of practices. That will be the week of March 22nd. We will then take off the next week for spring break. So we will have no practices the week of the 29th through the 31st. We will have no practices that week. And then we have our second week of practices, April 5th and 7th. And so the practices, once again, we will start next Tuesday, March 22nd. We'll have practice that week. We will also have practice the week of April 5th, and we will take off the week of March 29th for spring break. We will have practice twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that is the same for our games as well. So we schedule everything on Tuesday, Thursdays, same time, same place as far as same field location. They just might switch up fields each week depending on what the schedule says. So once again, just to clarify, we will have practice March 22nd and 24th. We will take off the 29th and 31st, and then we'll have our last 2 practices, April 5th and 7th. We will then start our games on April the 12th, and we will have 4 weeks of games. So that way everybody's kind of aware of our practice schedule, game schedule, and what everything is going to be looking like as far as with those. In the event that we have a rainout game, if say there was a rain and we had to cancel the games, the rainout game will be made up the following Monday. So that way you kind of know we will have that makeup game the following Monday. And so that's there as far as for cancellations or anything along those lines. For our evaluations, this is for ages 7 and over. So if you have a child that is in the 3 to 4 or 5 to 6 year old league, you do not have to worry about the evaluations. But if you have a child that is in the 7-year-old league or above, they do have evaluations. And those are starting tomorrow night. We will have one evaluation tomorrow night and one evaluation Thursday night. You are only required to come to one of those. So if you come to the Tuesday, you do not have to come to the Thursday, or if you're not able to make it Tuesday, you can then come to the Thursday. That way we can just evaluate the child. And the evaluations, they are not something to, oh, you get cut. It's not that type of evaluations. It's more of, since we allow the coaches to draft starting at age 7, we do the evaluations so that way we can put in a draft for the coaches to pick from. So the evaluations are not something that will exclude any children. It is more of something to get a solid basis to go off of in the drafting process for the evaluations. And so the times for the evaluations starting tomorrow night, we will have our 7 to 8 year olds at 5:15. This will be at Hunt Park. We will have our 9 to 10 year olds at 6 p.m. and then our 11 to 12 and 13 to 14 year olds at 6:45. Excuse me, just the 11 to 12 year olds at 6:45. So once again, starting tomorrow night at 5:15, we will have our 7 to 8 year old evaluations. At 6 p.m., we will have our 9 to 10 year old evaluations. And then at 7 p.m., we will have our 11 to 12 year old evaluations. And so that will be the times for the evaluations both tomorrow and Thursday. Any questions so far? Anything that we have covered?
You just said where the location will be. Is it the YMCA soccer field or the Hampton?
Yes, ma'am. It will be the YMCA soccer field, which is also called Hunt Park. But the address is in the chat, 1823 Westover Road.
Okay.
And that will be where we host our practices, games, evaluations, everything will be held at that location.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Is there any other questions? The 7 to 8 year olds, they will either be on field 1, 2, or 5. You'll have to reference the schedule as far as the exact field. We do not have the schedule out currently, but once we do have that out and your coach contacts you regarding the team, you will be able to determine which of those 3 fields the 7 to 8 year olds will be playing on. And so I will say with that, I did want to mention as far as for the coaches contacting you regarding which team you are on, that will be either next Monday night or Tuesday morning. We are having our coaches meeting next Monday, and I'm going to give the coaches their rosters at that meeting. And so they will then either contact you that night or the next morning regarding your teams and then locations and practice schedule and everything along those lines. So you will not hear from a coach until after next Monday night. So I just wanted to allow everybody the preparation for that. That way you could take that into account as far as for the team rosters and everything along those lines. We will not know that for that. I also see the question, is it too late to sign up an 11-year-old? You still can sign up at the YMCA. Registration will close tomorrow. So if anybody knows of anybody that is looking to get in, they can sign up before tomorrow, but I will say after tomorrow, there will no longer be any registrations available. So if you have anybody else that is wanting to sign up, please get them to sign up before then. And I also see the question, do you need any more sponsors for any of the teams? Yes, if anybody is interested in sponsoring their child's team, we do still have that opportunity available. Please get with me as soon as possible as I am finalizing the team sponsors by the end of the week. And so if you are interested in sponsoring your child's team, just send me an email, and that way I can get more info, get with you regarding more information. And so I will put my email in the chat. but my email is seth@tiftareaymca.org. So I've also put that in the chat. That way anybody can email me that. Yes, 7-8 practices on field 1, 2, or 5. That is correct. I will also post that image as far as the practice or the image of the YMCA fields on our website. That way you can reference that before you come. We'll also have it at our concession stand if you want to come and use that to reference it. That way you can know what field you are on. We will also, if you have any questions, feel free to come to the concession stand and ask us Tuesday. We will be glad to point you in the correct direction. I will also kind of skip in the agenda as far as for coaches. That's one thing this year with the turnout that we have had. We are still currently looking for coaches. Let's see. We are looking for right around 3 to 4 coaches in our 3 to 4-year-old league. That way we can have the maximum number of teams. We are looking for right around 4 coaches in our 5 to 6-year-old league. That way we can have the 8 teams. As mentioned, we're needing about 1 coach in our 7 to 8-year-olds, 3 coaches in our 9 to 10-year-olds, 1 coach in our 11 to 12-year-olds, and 1 coach in our 13 to 17-year-old league. So if it is something that you are interested in coaching, please, you can send me an email at seth@tiftareaymca.org, and I would be glad to have you. This is something that there is not necessarily any prerequisites that you must have to coach. We're going to go through all the information and give you all the stuff that you need to know next Tuesday. So even if you have no experience coaching, we would still love to have you involved. This is something that really, as far as a coach, the main requirement that we have is a willing body to participate and be involved in these children's lives and give them a structure to then base it off of and really build that team atmosphere in the coaching. So there is no soccer experience required. All we ask is that you just be willing to really participate in and be involved with the young children in what is going on. We will provide all the information and stuff required next Tuesday. So that is as far as the coaches. If you are interested, once again, please send me an email and get in touch with me, as we are still looking for some coaches in several of our leagues. As far as the uniforms, we will not have the uniforms until before the games, but that leads to the next part of the agenda as far as the uniforms and equipment and everything along those lines. So the YMCA will be providing the jersey. We will check the shirt sizes. For those that are coming to the evaluations, we're going to try to check them there, but we are also going to try and check them at our first practice on the 22nd. That way we can make sure everybody has the correct shirt sizes. In case something has changed since you signed up, we want to make sure that everybody's shirt sizes are ordered correctly. And that also goes if a parent has ordered an extra shirt apart from the uniform. We also ask that you check and make sure that that is on there and that the correct shirt size is on there for that. That way we can make sure to get that to you appropriately at the practice or the evaluation. So those are the 2 things that we ask everybody checks. But we provide the shirt and we ask that everybody wears black shorts. That way it kind of looks uniform. And then also shin guards and cleats are required from 5 to 6-year-olds and up. So if you have a child that is in the 5 to 6-year-old league or older, they are required to wear cleats and shin guards. The 3 to 4-year-olds, we encourage it, but we do not require it in those leagues. So the cleats and shin guards, we do require those for each league. So that is kind of for the uniform. We will not have them until before the first game, but I did want to mention that as far as for the uniforms there. Is there any questions on anything so far? What's the practice time of the 9 to 10-year-olds? We have the practice times for the 9 to 10-year-olds will be at 7 o'clock. So once again, the practice times for the 9 to 10-year-olds will be at 7 o'clock. How long should we plan for the evaluations? The evaluations will take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. All depends on how many children show up as far as what we will do, as far as how long it will take. But we have them scheduled for about 45 minutes to an hour for the evaluations. And so, like I said, we have the opportunity, you can come either Tuesday or Thursday. That way it'll allow for whichever is most flexible with your schedule, but we do ask that you come to at least one of those. That way we're able to get the child placed in the appropriate spot. And honestly, the main reason that we have the evaluations is that way after we draft teams, they can be as fair as possible. And that's why we ask everybody to come to the evaluations, because if you don't come to the evaluations, it leaves for the opportunity to have one team unevenly balanced or kind of throw off the drafting process. So we ask that everybody does attend at least only one of the evaluations to have as fair teams as possible. And that's our goal, is to have a very competitive league, but we also want to have a fair league where it's not just one team dominating everybody else, or one team that is really not able to participate with everybody. So we want the teams to be as fair as possible. And that is why we have our evaluations on those nights. Those are all good questions. Did anybody else have any other questions before we had moved on? All right, I see one question. What time is the practice for 5 to 6 and 7 to 8? So the 5 to 6 year olds will practice at 6 p.m. The 7 to 8 year olds will practice right after the 5 to 6 year olds at 7 p.m. Excuse me, 7 p.m. So the 5 to 6 year olds are at 6 p.m. 7 to 8 year olds are at 7 p.m. So moving right along, as far as for the weather alerts, and this goes actually for our evaluations tomorrow, as there is a chance of rain tomorrow. It seems like every time we start up the sports, the rain has to all of a sudden come in, and it just happens to be right at the time that we would be doing our evaluations. So I wanted to allow everybody the opportunity to know of the 2 different options we have for weather alerts. One of those is our weather hotline, and I'm going to put that in the chat as well. But the weather hotline is 229-528-9103. Once again, 9109. Sorry, I said that wrong. 9109. And I have posted that in the chat as well. So 229-528-9109. That will also be on all of our schedules for you to reference. And that way you will know if there's weather, if you're unsure if the games are going to be canceled, practice can be canceled, you can call that number. And we will update that number regarding each of the practices and games. We generally try to do that 30 minutes prior to each game. So that way we will allow for an adequate time for the traveling, as I know some parents might be coming from a distance and you might want to know in advance. So I wanted to make sure everybody knows that number there. Yes, just to understand, yes, the evaluations are for the older groups. That is 7-year-olds and up. If you have a child that isn't 3 to 4, 5 to 6 year olds, they will not have to come to evaluations. Those children are automatically placed on teams, and so they do not have evaluations in the 3 to 4 and 5 to 6 year olds. But I did also want to mention, this is something that is new this year. We just started implementing it in our winter basketball. And I know some of you might have already registered for it, as I sent out a reminder earlier today, but it is our Y game time. And so I wanted to show everybody, as you should be able to see on the screen currently, this is the page for the Y game time. So to get the address, you just type in the ygametime.com. It will pull this page up. You will then go and type in Tift area as the branch name. You can then hit find. It should pull up Tift Area YMCA. Once you select that, it'll take it to our homepage for Y Game Time. And then you will just hit sign up for alerts. You then choose the program, which will be spring soccer, and you can choose whichever division your child is in, whichever league. You can select multiple leagues if you have children in multiple leagues, but you will select this here, and then you will type in your phone number, and it will send out a direct message to your phone. It's kind of similar to the Remind apps. It just sends out a direct message to your phone, but this is how we will be also communicating regarding weather alerts, as well as like any change in scheduling, picture days, different things like that will be sent out through the Y Game Time. So I encourage all of our parents to please sign up for that. That way, a lot of people, the easiest way to get in touch with them is a text message. And so we now have the availability to send a text message directly to your phone regarding any of the most recent updates. And once again, that is ygametime.com, and it will take you to that place, and you can just sign up for there. So I did want to mention that for all of our participants. I did also want to add on for the ones that are coming to evaluations. If you are coming to evaluations tomorrow, as there is a chance of rain, please bring cleats and just regular tennis shoes, as if we are able to do it on the fields, we are going to use the cleats. However, if it does get rained out, we are still going to have the evaluations. We will just do them under our airnasium. So please make sure they have tennis shoes, as if it is under the airnasium, the cleats will not be the most efficient and most beneficial. So we just ask that you bring cleats and regular shoes. That way, if we do the evaluations under the airnasium tomorrow out of the rain, they're still able to participate and function properly, and nobody will get injured with those. So those are the two things that we're going to do as far as for the evaluations. And I will update both the weather hotline and the Y Game Time regarding that, allowing everybody to know for the evaluations what's going on and things like that. And so those are the weather updates, the weather hotline, as well as our Y Game Time. And so I wanted to kind of stop and ask, is there any other questions that you might have on what I've discussed, or questions that might not have been covered that you might have? And you can either unmute or you can post it in the chat, and I would be glad to get back with you. So I see the question, do they have to have cleats for the evaluations? For the one tomorrow, it's something we ask that they bring cleats and regular shoes. But for the one on Thursday, we do ask they have cleats. If it's something that you have not been able to stop by and purchase cleats, we can still evaluate them without cleats. We just ask that everybody have cleats if possible. That way they get the best outcome of the evaluations with the cleats. So if they don't have cleats, it will be okay, but we do ask if possible that they have the cleats for the evaluations. So thank you, that's a good question. Any other questions? All right, I will say just a few things to kind of wrap it up and recap. If you were interested in sponsoring, there is still the availability to do that before the end of the week. You can just email me or stop by the YMCA and we'll get you the information for that. If you would be willing to coach, once again, we are still looking for coaches in each of our league, and to be able to have the maximum availability and have the, in a sense, the best outcome for each of our teams, and not have to have 12 or 13 kids on one team. We are still looking for coaches. That way we can spread those children out and allow for a more enjoyable opportunity. We are still looking for coaches. So if you are interested or willing, please get with me, either email or stopping by the YMCA. And I would love to get you that information and kind of talk with you about that. We will have our coaches meeting next Monday. Also, for the schedules, we will post those on our website, tiftareaymca.org. That's where we're going to post those, so you can reference them and know what field you're on by next Tuesday, which is also when the coaches should have contacted you by, because as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, I will give the coaches the rosters at the coaches meeting next Monday, and then we'll either contact you that night or the next morning regarding your team, practice times, and things along those lines. And then for the evaluations, they will be tomorrow and Thursday. You only have to come to one of those to be evaluated. As far as the coaches, if you are coaching, we would encourage you to come to both. That way you can see all of the children evaluate, but it is only required that everybody comes to one of the evaluations. And those will be at 5:15 for the 7 to 8-year-olds, 6 p.m. for the 9 to 10-year-olds, and 7 p.m. for the 11 to 12-year-olds. And so that is the evaluation times as well as dates. Our practices will start March 22nd, games starting April 12th. And then we will also take the week of spring break for both Tift area and Tift County off, as they have aligned on the same week this week. So that's what I wanted to say. That is all the information that I have. I will kind of pause now for anybody that has any questions. But if you do not have any questions, thank you guys for joining in. We will either see you at the evaluations this week or at the beginning of next week. And I did see the question, can we come to both evaluations? So as far as that is concerned, you only have to come to one, as when we evaluate the children, we will have all the information. If you wanted to come to both evaluations, I don't see a reason you couldn't, but they won't have to be evaluated the second time. Also, when does the season end? The season will end, I believe it's May 5th. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yes, May 5th will be our last game, May the 5th. And so that is when our season will end as far as for everything. So as far as what days will the second practice be, it will be on Thursday. So all of our practices and games are on Tuesday and Thursday. Unless something's rained out, it will then be on Monday, but everything will be scheduled on Tuesday, Thursday. That goes for practices and games. So that way you will know what it is. So the first practice will be March 22nd. Second practice will be March the 24th. And that will be kind of the continuing theme throughout the remainder of the season on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I see any particular color for socks. No, there is no requirement as far as color for socks. I encourage black just as it will look uniform, and that's really for the picture day is the main day that we stress that. But as far as for the color of socks, it can be flexible, and a lot of times we leave that up to the coaches if they have a certain color they prefer or anything as far as that goes. So the color of sock, encourage black, but whichever color you see you might already have would work. I see the question. Do the 5 to 6 year olds need cleats? Yes, we do recommend the cleats for the 5 to 6 year olds, as at that league they start kind of playing, they start beginning to play more of a, I guess you could say, running a little bit more. And so we do encourage or recommend the cleats for that age group. What times 11 to 12 have to come for the evaluation? So the 11 to 12 year olds will be at 7 o'clock on Tuesday and Thursday. So yes, did anybody else have any questions regarding